myself. Great idea. Okay, good. Can everyone hear me? Good. All right. So I titled this presentation AI for Everyone, and I did put a question mark up there. So if you're not yet sure if it's for you or not, I hope that I'm going to go step by step, a little bit of overview, a little bit of use, and a little bit of, if you happen to have the internet connection, try it yourself. But we're going to get going here, and if I lose you, raise your hand, and I can go back and I can see if we can get you a little bit further to go through here. So before going, okay, I made a mistake this morning. Yes. Yeah. Sounds good. Thank you. Yes. Yes. This is one of the reasons I often speak in French, because I do speak slower in French. So great. Thank you. Yes. Okay. So I made a mistake this morning, and I asked AI to write an introduction for a presentation on AI, and now I want to hear its presentation instead of mine. But I'm trying again, and so I have given it a copy of my presentation. Yeah, this is ChatGPT, one of the tools we're going to be looking at today, and it has read that, and I'm going to ask it to give an introduction for this presentation that it has not heard before, or that I have not heard before. This is going to be new, so here we go. Let's get it into the mode here. Ready to connect. Give a TED Talk style introduction for this presentation.
Imagine stepping onto a warmly lit stage in Yaoundé, Cameroon, in front of a diverse audience eager to learn about the intersections.
Like I said, the wireless technology.
Language and culture. You begin your presentation with an engaging and thought-provoking introduction. Good morning, everyone. I'm Matthew Lee, a language technology consultant with SIL Cameroon.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, maybe that's not going to work, but I wanted to do it live, but it's now muted itself. Okay, fine, we'll skip that. So yeah, but yeah, I can send you the text later, but the one it gave me was quite interesting. So, all right, next slide. Still talking. Just taking over, that's right. Okay. Wasn't planning on using that. Okay. Last minute decisions. All right. So computers. Frank Herbert is one of my favorite authors. So what do such machines really do? Or really? Shut up. Exit app. Gone. Okay. So what do such machines really do? They increase the number of things we can do without thinking. Things we do without thinking, there's the real danger. All right. Okay. Good. So there are a lot of tools out there that are AI tools. They're called generative AI tools, where you give it something and you ask it something and it generates something. And so these are all paid services here. So you've got TikTok has AI services, Instagram. If you were here for the presentation on scripture use, he mentioned Suno, I believe, which allows you to create audio. And there are even AI gaming engines that are down here. We're not going to be talking about those. There are enterprise level AI. If you need to do a lot of something, then there are some services that if you have the money to do it, you can subscribe to those services, and they will provide you with a lot of content and a lot of ways to manage that content. I'm going to be spending time today on these types of tools. They're up there, the label at the top says prosumer. So prosumer is the same as the word freemium, which means that you can do something for free. If you want to do more, you probably have to pay for it. So the tools that I'm going to be talking about are something that should be free, at least to start out with. But if you're using it a lot, it might make sense to pay for it, and you might get better services for it. So I'm trying, one of the things that I want to get across in this presentation is what's going on underneath without getting too technical. So I've set up an example here that I'm hoping will explain a little bit about what's going on underneath the system so that it sort of takes the ghost out of the machine. There is a yellow bag over there on the table that has fidget toys if anyone is interested. I just want to get them back. Fidget toys. If you need to do something with your hands, that's right. So here is a simplified example. So I want to make a distinction between simple programs, machine learning, and deep learning. So a simple program, let's say you wanted to instruct this smiley face how to get through the maze. You could give it instructions step by step. Say, advance one step, turn right, advance another step, turn left, advance four steps, and so on. And so if you do that, you end up with a relatively efficient way of getting through the maze. That works great for this case. I've done all the work because I know how to do mazes. I've done all the work to have it do the maze. But what happens if you change the maze? If you change the maze, it doesn't work anymore because you've hit a wall. So it's very easy to train a computer to do something that a person has done before. It is much more difficult to train a computer to do something that no one has done before or that you can't simulate. So the next level up after a simple program is an algorithm. Let's give it a pattern, or let's give it a process that it can repeat over and over again, and let's see if we can get it to do something. So I've told, in this simulation, I've told it to follow the wall on the left, on its left. So when I start that, it is following its wall on the left. There's no need for it to go over here, but because I told it to follow the wall on the left, it goes over here. But it does complete the maze. So it completed the maze, but not efficiently. Okay? And if I give it a different maze, which is actually the same maze, just rotated, it will do the same thing. It doesn't need to go, but it does. And so you have in the red boxes the areas that are inefficient. But again, it completed the maze. All right? So machine learning uses reinforcement learning to complete a task. So you give it goals, and you give it points or outcome or whatever it is you want to set up, and you define what it can do, and you let it try. So this is a machine learning example. So I'm going to set some goals. The goal for the smiley face is to follow the maze from the entrance to the exit. It's not allowed to cross walls. The shortest path wins, and try it thousands of times and keep trying until the distance doesn't get any shorter. So an example of what that might do. They're lazy. These systems are lazy. If they find a shortcut that wins the game, they will. Okay? Because I didn't tell it. I didn't tell it couldn't leave the box. So we're going to go back in, give it some more rules. So all of the original rules, plus you must enter at point A and go to point B, and you cannot leave the maze. Okay? So then we're going to have it run a whole bunch of routines over and over and over again, and it's going to try to find the most efficient path to get through the maze. And eventually you're going to end up with one that is the best, and that's the one that you're going to use later on. So all of these, let's say the green one maybe just got stuck and went in circles. and the purple one, yeah, went the wrong direction, but eventually it got there. But you keep going through until you have something that is working. And so now we've got this red box here that says you're not allowed to leave. I started it inside the maze, and it's trying to get to point B. So then after a bunch of tries, not only has it made it, but it's also starting to cut the corners. So it is cutting the corners and finding a more efficient route than the zigzag that I originally programmed it with. So this is better than what I gave it to start out with. And so if we give it another maze, it may do it just perfectly, it may not. So in this example, it hangs out over here for a moment, but then it goes on because it figures out it can't go anywhere. So you can give it sensors, depending on how you're setting it up, to say, if you're running into a dead end, if there's a condition that is you're heading towards a dead end, don't go that way. And it may be able to tell there's a dead end, it may not, but you can configure the inputs to make it appropriate for what you need. So taking this another level further, I said that you train it thousands of times. So I'm going to show you an example of someone doing that to play a race game called Trackmania. There we go. And so now there are thousands of versions of this car that are trying to complete the race one after another, but this is showing them all together. So some of them fall off the cliff and get lost. Some of them are fine. Some of them are just slow. But eventually, after many, many, many hours of simulated driving, you can get to a point, and this was a very complex maze that the guy was able to complete in 6 minutes. His best time was 4 minutes. There's a later video where it actually even starts to beat him. But that's what you're doing with machine learning. You give it bounds, you give it requirements, you let it try. Some of the things are awful. If it's awful, you don't go that direction. If it's better, you go that direction until you get something that you like. So deep learning is a step beyond that. So we're continuing that example. So now we're going to train the system on millions and more hours of human road driving. We're going to filter out the bad or the illegal decisions that those drivers made. We're going to train it in non-ideal conditions. It needs to know how to move around on rain, snow, mud. And we're going to test it over and over and over again. And after that, this is what you get. This is Tesla full self-driving. And you see he's removed his hand from the wheel, and the car is driving him around the corner, and it can do way more than that.
This is a real video.
This is a real video, yes. Yeah, I probably should say that in this presentation. They're not all, yes. But yes, this is a real video of Tesla full self-driving. So before you get to this point, you have to have a lot of safeguards in place. You do not want to send the system that crashed all those times out there for people to use. And honestly, even with Tesla, most of the times that they have had crash, it actually wasn't the AI's fault. Most of the time there were a lot of times there was something that the user did that they shouldn't have. Or sometimes there are situations that even a human would have crashed in that situation. The response times can be better. A Tesla can be looking at all cameras at one time. A person cannot. Yeah. So let's take that AI and take it a step further. Bake me a cake. No, it doesn't know how to do that. It wasn't trained on that. So when you get an AI that is really good at doing something, that doesn't mean it's good at doing everything. So the DeepMind by Google, or by IBM, sorry, by IBM was trained to be really good at chess. And it turned out it was good at some other games, but there are a lot of things it wouldn't be good at. So you can ask, what can AI do? May not be the best question, but it is a good question. So at this point, I am convinced that AI can do many things that you can do nearly as well as you can without a lot of guidance. If I ask AI to translate a document into French, there are definitely places that it can do better than me. If I ask it to translate into German, it's way better than I am, but I can't confirm whether it did a good job or not because I don't speak German. I can shop in German, but I don't speak German. So AI can do some general tests better than you. I can't do poetry, and so if I ask AI to write a poem and I give it a rhyming scheme or whatever, it can do a great job. And it's going to do better than I am. Summarize a large document. Okay, so I've got a document of well, actually, what I wanted to show you, where I gave it my presentation and asked it to give a summary. AI is really good at that. It can take a 30-page document and summarize it in 500 words, and you can't get it more. You may not be able to get it more succinct than that. Now, it may make mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes are based on the training data. So if you have a presentation and it says two things that oppose each other, it's not going to know which one to go with. Sometimes the mistake is just it doesn't know the context. It doesn't know about the situation. It doesn't know that whatever is the case. But the big thing I want you to know from this presentation is if it can't already do it, AI can do, or you can teach AI to do it slightly better than you can if you're willing to teach it. So as long as you know what's good and what is not, even a general AI, you can teach it to do the thing that you want it to do. So for an example, I am an okay programmer, and with AI, I have been able to accomplish things that I know that I could not accomplish on my own because it knows more about the field than I do. And some of the things it gave were gibberish, and they weren't useful or they were counterproductive. Some of the things it gave were 90% right, and I could fix that. So I've said in the presentation for Bible translation, if we get to the point that AI can generate something that is easier to clean up than it is to do yourself, we have won. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay? So some examples of tools that you're familiar with. Google Translate. Back in 2010, Google Translate was pretty awful. It was a statistical machine translation, and even the French and English was laughably bad. So it was often easier if you took something and passed it through Google Translate and you pass it to a revisor, the revisor would throw up their hands and say, I could do this better myself, and they would start from scratch. It often made this problem of je ai, which is not allowed in French, and it didn't know that, and it just kept putting it out over and over again. That was a very early generation of statistical translation. Later on, they moved in 2016 to neural machine translation. It's still not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. But they're now behind DeepL. So DeepL is probably, as far as I'm aware, is the best translation tool out there for the languages that it knows. And when I say the languages that it knows, it's this. Didn't remove the footnote on Indonesian, but these are the languages that DeepL knows. When I first started using it, it knew 8. French was one of them because they started European Union and they started training it on documents from the European Union that were massively multilingual. So the reason that it can do the amazing things that it can do is because it is trained on millions or billions of documents. Basically trained on the internet for how do you do things? How do you say things? When you have a bot that is trying to do speech and language, you only want it to be so creative. You don't want it to make up words. It may make up a word and you're like, yeah, okay, I understand what you meant by that, and that's fine because we do that all the time. But if it's just putting random collections of letters down, that's not helpful. So you typically want to constrain it to only put out real words and to arrange those in a good way. So DeepL gives consistent quality translation. So if you ask it to translate a text, it's going to do a pretty good job. If you ask it to translate the same text again, it's going to do a pretty good job, and it's going to be pretty similar to what it gave you. It is likely to be pretty similar to what it gave you before. Okay? So stepping out a little further here, Dolly, Night Cafe, Stable Diffusion. These are generative image creation tools. I give it text and I ask it to create an image. So they are able to mimic various styles and artists. So we're going to look at that in a moment. And what you do is you create a very detailed prompt in language, in French and English and something like that, and you ask it to try and create it. That most of them will create four different images, and you pick the one you like best. If you don't like it, or it doesn't understand it, you clarify and make it a little bit better, make the prompt a little bit clearer, and then you go a step further. So here's a prompt. This is an example from Jenny Beadle. So make a recipe with apples and nuts. And this is an image generator. Is that what you would have expected? A soup. Did we tell it not to make a soup? No. So let's try again. Make a dessert recipe with apples and nuts. Now, it has generated this image from noise, from just fuzz. And it looks like an apple nut strudel thing going on there. Yes?
When you say fuzz,
yeah.
It means it's taken a whole bunch of pictures of apple nut desserts and then tried to get something that was more psychotic?
Sort of.
What do you
Okay.
mean fuzz?
So what it actually does, okay, it has been trained on images across the internet. And those images, it knows, oh, that's a picture of a dog. That's a picture of a tree, whatever. It's figured out a lot of those things, or it was told a lot of those things. So what it actually does underneath, and I don't want to get too deep in there, is it just, like the noise that you would see when your TV is tuned to the wrong channel, the black and white noise, it starts with that. And then it gradually tweaks that noise until it ends up looking like this dessert.
There's no picture like that on the internet.
There is no picture like that on the internet, and if I got it from ChatGPT, I can be sure that there is not a picture like that because it's not allowed to use or to generate that material. Yes, Larry.
I would imagine this is very culturally determined because when I look at that, I see there an apple crisp or an apple cobbler,
Yep.
which is a North American apple.
That's right.
So I imagine if someone said it in French, or said it in German, or
if you clarify.
Sorry?
Or if you clarify.
Okay, something that's out there and that's in such and such a place.
Yes, if you're looking for a Mexican dish with apples and nuts, you can give it that, and it will generate something.
And who knows, maybe the one on the left, for Cameroonian friends.
Yeah, suggest it. So, all right, here's another one you may have seen before. Jesus flipping over tables in the temple. Unfortunately, this one doesn't work very well in French, but this is what AI generated. I mean, it's true. It is Jesus flipping over tables in the temple. It's not what you expected. So let's change it a little bit. Jesus turning over tables in the temple. So this was an image the first image with the flipping over tables, somebody else got that. But this was an image that I got on the first try when I asked it for an image of Jesus flipping over tables in the temple. Later on, I tried to get it to do something a little bit different, and I had less luck. These are, with a different tool, this is the best I could get. We got Fierce Jesus over here, punching the table. And we also got this one, that this table now has 2 legs. So logic doesn't always make sense, and you end up with weird things. And also, usually in these, the hands are actually pretty good here, but usually the hands are distorted. So I'll ask for it in other styles. I said, give it to me in the style of The Night Watch by Rembrandt. That was the first one. Okay? Give it to me in the style of Michelangelo's paintings on the Sistine Chapel. That was the second one. It really wanted Jesus to flip the table towards him, and I don't know why. And I had a lot of arguments with it, trying to get it to flip it away from him rather than towards him. And even there, he's hitting it with his fist, and it's coming towards him. Okay. That was one of the best ones that I could get out of about 10 that I asked it for. That was the best one I could get in line art. The table is being flipped over. The coins are at least already on the ground, but you're getting the idea of what's going on. So if I wanted that to adapt that to another culture, I could ask that. I didn't ask that. Yes, Beth? Yes. Yep. So, yep. And copyright is a whole nother issue in here, but yes, you are allowed to use it. You are in, depending on what country you are in, you may not actually be able to copyright the image yourself because it was generated by AI. But those are ongoing discussions. But yes, in general, whatever is produced, it's kind of like if you write a document with a font, you can print that document. You don't have to pay Microsoft or Google money for that. Yes. Hmm? No. Every single time you ask most of these tools a question, it will generate a new response. And so that's an advantage because you will get different responses, but it also is a disadvantage if you want to find the one that it produced last week. So if I got one I liked, I copied it immediately and kept a copy of it because I'm not going to get back to that image exactly. So, yeah, they're all wrong. Here we go. Okay, there we go, inside the sanctuary. There we go. I didn't even go there, so, yep. Yep. He says that they're all wrong because it wouldn't have actually been inside the temple. It would have been inside or out in the courtyard. That's good. And so that's where that, yeah, that's where so I thought it was pretty good, but someone who has domain knowledge says, there's a mistake. So we could have had a conversation with the AI and said, okay, please correct this. I asked it for in the temple, and so it can't be, it did it right. Yes, Rachel. Yeah. I'll talk about that. That will come up. Yep. So video, yeah.
Sorry, if I can come back to
Yep.
just a little caution. It is good to review that I've worked with Matt Rickard on producing some of the materials in French on the and he ran them through Google Translate and it produced very good things generally. But for instance, just to give an example, the whole checkout procedure now, the initial translation of checkout was like the cash checkout at the supermarket.
Yes.
So I kind of point. So it's not to fault anyone, but yes, it's good to have.
It is very important to reread anything and look at it very carefully that AI has given you before you publish it. Whatever it is, no matter how good the tool is, it can still make mistakes, and if you don't catch it, it's kind of your fault. With DeepL, if you open it in DeepL and you have not yet copied it out, and you decide, I really don't like the terminology it chose here, you can correct it in the DeepL interface, and it will adjust the document to use the terminology that you gave. If you go to the paid version, you can actually keep a dictionary of terminology. So all of your terms in scripture use and literacy, whatever, how you want those to be translated. You can give it a dictionary so that it will consistently translate the things that you want to translate as those terms. The paid version, it gives you something, you can make it better. The free version, the paid version, you can do more text, and you have the option of making that first round better by giving it more information. Okay, so video creation with Sora. Sora is a new tool. It's not open to everyone yet, but I'm going to show you some examples of that. Don't need the audio here. So 1 year ago, this video upcoming was about as good as AI could do generating a video, and the prompt was Will Smith eating spaghetti. So here we are. It is a nightmare. So this was 1 year ago, this video. All right. So maybe we shouldn't keep going. Okay. Last month, here's a video that was generated by Sora. This is not Will Smith. No, there are versions of the Will Smith, but I was going off of that theme. So this was generated, and basically it was a text that said, a young woman walking on the streets of Tokyo at night in a leather jacket and a red dress with reflections and whatever. And it generated this image, which is the best of the best, to be fair. It's pretty good. If you watch very carefully, there are places where somebody's sort of shuffling oddly, or the reflections aren't perfect, but that's pretty amazing. There you go. There are even blemishes in the skin. It allowed for the imperfection. Yep. Okay, so that again was best of the best. The image tools are still not good at writing text. Text comes out blurry like you're in a dream, but okay. So we're gonna move on here. There is one, but I didn't download that. So it's not always perfect. So here's one of wolf pups playing. And just watch carefully. What's wrong with this video? They're multiplying. This tool does not understand physical space and how many wolf cubs can fit in a space. So it is trying to generate images of wolf pups that appear and disappear. This was generated by the same tool that generated the other tool or the other video we just saw.
The other video did the same thing with people in the background.
Yeah. There are times that a car will blink out of existence or whatever in the background. And it's just, yeah. So, okay, I do need sound for this one. All right, so let me get this. All right, so here's something done by someone in SIL. So there is a tool called HeyGen that allows you to take a video that you have recorded and it will change the language to another language and it will make you lip sync to that language. So this is a video done by Mike Cochran. I'm hoping the sound will come up here. Oh.
D'accord. Ceci est un test pour voir comment fonctionne cette technologie de traduction automatisée. Donc, j'ai parlé avec Tyler aujourd'hui à propos de l'achat de sa maison et nous avons discuté de plusieurs choses différentes. Certains d'entre eux avaient à voir avec le marché et comment vous détermineriez si c'est un bon investissement à louer. Certains d'entre eux avaient à voir avec le risque.
Yep. So that video was generated, it was an original video that he recorded of himself speaking in English. And not only did it change the audio, it also lip synced his lips to the new audio. And it is interesting it came out. I thought also that it sounded like Canadian French when it came out. Yes, Larry.
Well, there's an English travel YouTuber. He's put something out. He doesn't speak any Spanish, but he did a short where he's speaking Spanish, so he must have used something similar to this.
Exactly. So ChatGPT. ChatGPT is the big one on the block. This is the one you've probably heard about, even if you aren't interested in AI. So ChatGPT it stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Doesn't mean a lot, but that's what it is. So ChatGPT is able to answer questions and have interactive discussions. It's trained on basically a download of the internet at least a year ago. It's not trained on yesterday. It's trained on something a while back. There are lots of reasons for that. It is capable of role play through prompting. So you can ask it, you can give it a role, say, you are a linguist specializing in Austronesian languages, for example, and you're in this situation. How would you respond? And it can do this role play, and it can go even further than just saying, what's the answer to this question? So with ChatGPT, it is free for moderate use using the older model, which is 3.5, the version that was released before. You can go on right now to OpenAI's website, chat.openai.com, and you can start using it, but you will be using the 3.5 version, which is pretty good, but it's not the best. I have found with GPT 3.5 that if I have a conversation of about more than about 50 interchanges, it starts to lose context. The things that it remembered at the beginning of the conversation, it's starting to forget. But with ChatGPT 4, not as much the case. ChatGPT 4 also does have the option to create images, and for the paid version, you have the option to give it attachments. I can give it a Word document, I can give it a text file, I can give it a web page, and then I can ask it questions about that document. You can't do that with the free version. With the free version, all you can do is give it text in the little chat box, ask it questions, and it gives you text back. So ChatGPT is a general large language model. When you ask it questions like, what's your opinion? It may say, as a language model, I don't have an opinion, but here are some things here. Here are some parts. It will not give you links, so it is not a replacement for your search engine. You probably shouldn't go in here and ask it for local news in your town, because it won't know it. And if it does, it may be making up things that didn't actually happen. ChatGPT will rarely give the same answer twice, even if you want it to. It also will not, it is instructed not to give copyrighted, harmful, or sexual content. OpenAI has a lot of constraints on what it can generate and what it cannot, and they have used keywords to say, nope, I can't do that. And the answers that it generates are almost always plausible. They sound right, they're in good English, good French, but they may not be true. They may not be factually correct. And that is important to know. So AI works best as a co-pilot. So it's not going to make you an expert in something you don't know. As for example, I gave the example of German translation. If I ask it to translate it something in German, I can't tell if it was a good translation or not. And so if I publish that, then a German speaker is going to be like, why in the world did you publish that? That doesn't make any sense, or it's just wrong, whatever. But if you want to start to understand something, it's at least as good a place as going to Wikipedia. So I'm interested in this field. Give me an introduction. That's probably going to be really good. The deeper you dive into that field, if you are a specialist, you will find cracks. You will find nuances. You will find things that it misunderstood or that it merged together. Because it's a language model, it is not a fact model. So if you can explain to AI how to do something, you can probably get AI to do it. But you need to check the results before using them. And if you give information to ChatGPT, that is no longer your information. So do not give it confidential information. If you want to ask it theoretically, how do I deal with this situation? Remove the names first. And give it that way. So we're going to get real practical real soon here, but this is also something from Jenny's presentation. There are 3 steps of using generative AI. First, you want to prime it. You want to tell the tool the background information that it needs to know. Hey, I'm getting ready to do a workshop on this. These are the topics I'm planning to cover. Prompt it. Please generate a short summary that I can use to post on a website about this presentation. Polish it. No, that is not at all what I wanted. Please change it to be more like this. If you only ask it once and you go with what it gave, it could be better. But if you are willing to go further, to work with it, to have that conversation, it can get better and better and closer to what you want. So today we're going to look at look at some applications here. I'm going to start with Goblin.tools. It has a weird name, I know, but Goblin.tools actually is something you can pull it up on your phone, you can pull it up on your computer. It is a website, but it does AI things, but it has sort of recipes that it is already set up to do useful things. And later we're going to talk about ChatGPT, and we're going to talk about the language model search combos. So Goblin.tools, here we go. So this is a good starter, I think, to get an understanding of what AI can do for you, because it sort of has predefined recipes of those things. So here are some examples of things that someone might want to be able to do. And we're going to ask Goblin.tools to help us do it. So I need to get out of the presentation. And we're going to open up the internet now and pray that that works. Goblin.tools. What? All right. Here we are. Okay. So here we are. Yep. So the text that I wanted to generate here, I need to X out of this. There we go. Let's go to the slide I'm on. There we go. So plan a literacy workshop in a remote village without electricity. So that's a task that I'm going to give it. And so I'm going to go up here and I'm going to paste in the box. There we go. And I have this little meter here. This is how much help do I need? 3 is medium, 5 is a lot, 1 is very little. But I'm going to go ahead and add that as a task. All right, so we now have this task, and I will make that bigger so it can be read. There we go. But let's use the magic wand, and let's break that down into subtasks. Hit the magic wand, it is working. Here we go. Identify a location within the village to host the workshop. Determine a date and time for the workshop. Gather necessary materials. Develop a curriculum. Recruit volunteers or educators. Promote the workshop. Arrange for transportation. Set up a temporary learning space. Implement the literacy workshop. Collect feedback. And make any necessary adjustments for the future. So let's say, okay, that's cool. That's a good start. But I don't really know, what do I want to do for the curriculum? So let's have it ask a question, or let's ask it that. So I'm going to ask it for that to develop subtasks. So identify the specific literacy goals. Yeah, that's a good start. Actually, I can't read it up from the, can somebody else read the next one down?
Select appropriate reading materials for the participants.
Okay.
Design interactive activities to engage the attendees.
Participatory methods.
Yes,
yeah.
Determine the duration and schedule of the workshop. Create a list of necessary supplies and materials.
Yep.
Consider the logistics of conducting the workshop in a remote village without electricity. Tailor the curriculum to the needs and abilities of the participants.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay.
So, and then again, we could dive in further, and we can give it subtasks, and it even has a feature of estimator. It'll guess about how much time that might take. So I think that's pretty cool. So let's go with another one here. So we're going to inspect my car before a long trip. I'm taking inspiration from the other half days. So here we go. Inspect my car before a long trip. Now, if I wanted to be very clear, I could tell it it's a truck, it's an SUV, it's a car, whatever, but I'm just going to go ahead with that. All right, and I'm going to give it the magic wand. Check tire pressure. Look for any leaks under the car. Verify all fluids are at proper levels. Test headlights. Check windshield wipers and fluids, and inspect for wear. Let's tweak it. So I'm going to edit this one. Now let's actually make it right, using 4-wheel drive. So let's tweak it. So I'm going to click OK there, and I'm going to remove the subtasks that it already made, and I'm going to run it again, and it's probably going to be giving me more information that is appropriate to the context of doing it 4-wheel drive. So lights, confirm it's engaged and functioning correctly. So it's starting, but I didn't give it a lot of information. So that's another one you can ask it for. This is not always, well, let's do one more here. So copy. All right, so new item. Develop a good workplace personal balance. All right. I don't know how to do that. Yeah. So here we are. Let's hit the magic wand. Yes. All right. So evaluate work and personal commitments. I can't read the next one. Set boundaries, prioritize tasks and responsibilities, communicate to ideas or needs to supervisors or colleagues, take breaks for self-care, reflect. And if you need more information on any of those, you just click that one and it will subtask it out again. So is everything in here things that you're going to do? Maybe not, but it's some really good ideas if you don't know where to start. And this is one of the things that AI can do, and this tool is very accessible. And it's free. It's free to use online for goblin.tools. So let's take another one here. So there's a tool up here at the top called Judge. Judge. And so this says, am I misreading the tone of this? So I'm going to pull up an article, a hot button article. It's related to Obamacare and Trump, or and Biden. But I'm pulling up an article here, and I'm going to select the text of the article. This is interesting to do in reverse. There we go. All right. Go further. Whatever. Okay. All right. So I've selected the text of the article. All right. And I'm like, how did these people feel about the situation? Copy. Go back to Dublin. Okay. Paste the text here. Judge. Yep. The text comes across emotionally and as passionate and urgent. And so it's giving point by point. Biden expresses concern, and there's more and more. But it is now saying, what did I read into this text? That is pretty impressive what it can do there. And so I've taken an article about one of the heads of finance in the U.S. and it's like, yeah, obviously this person doesn't like her. And so it figures that out. So it's interesting, you know, and that may be useful to you, may not be, but and I could do that. I did that with a lot of BBC articles, and it typically gave me that it was educational and encouraging. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So, all right. So let's go one more. So there is a chef. So I'm going to go to another menu here. Chef. There we go. All right. So I have, space there. I have white bread, green pepper. You can give it a list of what's in your fridge. And what can I make for a dinner for two? All right. Suggest. All right, here we go. And this is going to be different than what it gave me last time. I have actually gourmet apple and pepper grilled cheese. So I didn't add apples the first time I ran this. So if you are a chef, you will look at this and you might go, that's a little weird, but it might be good. And so it depends on, you know, if you give it things that go together, then it's going to do a better job. But I find this to be really interesting. I've used this tool on and off for the last year or so. But yeah, okay. So yep. So I'm going to stop there for a moment before we get into the next section. So are there any questions up to that point? We've got 1 hour left, so we're hitting the midpoint. Any questions, comments, or whatever up to that point before we dive into some more practical examples? Yeah. Formalizer, it takes a text and it makes it as formal, as informal, or as sarcastic as you want. And so you can give it a text that you were very angry when you wrote and have it make a positive version of it. Yep, there you go. Yeah. Exactly. And you can do the same thing with ChatGPT, but you have to prompt it. Yes, John. Hmm? Yes. There are some points, yeah. Generally, when you're using a free service, you don't have that option. If you're paid, you might have more options and more control over what happens with your data. Yeah, that's true. So, okay, any other questions, comments? Have I lost you yet, or are you still following?
Maybe just
yeah.
One clarification. I hope we will have access to your presentations.
Yes.
Later.
I have a French and an English version, but it was changing up until the last minute, so I will give you links to that. I'll send it to the same. I'll send it out. If you don't get it by email from Nina within the next day or two, send me a message and I'll get it to you. But yes, this presentation, I have a French and an English version of this presentation. Okay. Any other comments? Is anybody seeing something they might actually use? Yeah?
Well, I just wanted you to try another experience.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, this is dangerous. This is coming from John. Okay. It is Elizabeth approved.
I know.
All right. Here we go.
General.
Okay. So we're going to ask it to make poulet DG. Make that I'm gonna, should I capitalize that? I wonder. Actually, let's just do it in French. Okay. Okay. So, all right. So now I have to hit the magic wand. So it didn't understand the context. But if we gave it, yeah, you can get funny stuff. If I gave it, there's a dish called poulet DG in Cameroon. Please help me make it. It would probably be able to help you if you give it the right context.
My chicken was lowercase.
Yep.
And it gave me defrosted chicken, seasoned the chicken with desired spices.
Okay.
And then we kept trying to figure out what was the desired spices. And it kept nesting. Oh, find your desired spices. Trying to see if they're available.
Yeah.
Nesting on itself.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there is a chef, exactly. And that would be another option, yeah. I want to make this, and what do I need? And you can ask those reverse questions. Teresa was making something, and it said we needed chickpeas, but it said we needed powdered chickpeas. And I said, well, what if we have canned chickpeas? And it's like, oh, well, you can use that, but it might have a slightly different texture, or you can add this to change it. Again, it may be right, it may be not, but you know, how bad is it if your dinner doesn't come out exactly the way that you intended? Okay. I'm going to leave Goblin.tools off for a moment here, so let's get back to the presentation. I was very impressed when I found that tool. So, all right. So the better question than what can AI do is what do you need to do? It can do a lot of things you don't need it to do, and I've already shown you some of those. But do you want to learn more about a subject? Do you want to know a difference between 2 or 3 things or 4 things? Do you need ideas? Hey, I'm looking for icebreaker activities for a group of 17-year-olds. Whatever. I mean, you can give it that sort of thing. Do you need to complete a task but don't know how to do one step? That's where it's really amazing. If you just need a little help to get to the next thing, and you can still evaluate to make sure that it did a good job, that's where it's really going to be powerful as a co-pilot. Do you want an easier way to do a boring or repetitive task? It may be able to help you with that. If you were doing something over and over and over again, and you're wasting time doing it, but it's something that has to be done, you probably could get an AI to at least draft it for you, if not do it for you. Now, you should be clear with the person that you're giving it to that that's what you've done, but it can help you with that task. So, working with generative chatbots. So, I've got some lists here. ChatGPT is by an organization called OpenAI. Copilot is Microsoft. Gemini is Google. Claude is Anthropic, I believe, is the organization behind it. So this is talking about the what's free and not free. If you want to use ChatGPT 4, but a little bit, you can do that through Microsoft Copilot. Copilot.microsoft.com. It is free. You just have to create an account with Microsoft to be able to use it. If you don't create the account, then you can chat with it, but you can't do things like ask it for images or whatever. There are more advanced features if you make a free account. and you're only allowed to make 30 requests a day on the free version. This is what I'm talking about, freemium, prosumer, where you can only use it a little bit for free. If you want to use it a lot, you probably should pay for it. ChatGPT's site, it allows you to use ChatGPT 3.5 for free, but ChatGPT 4, dealing with attachments and doing image generation, are paid features. And right now, ChatGPT is $20 a month for the paid features. Yes?
I had a question about that. When I was first trying to use ChatGPT, it required a confirmation of US address.
Yes.
Is that?
It is available in Cameroon. It is not available in all countries, but it is available in Cameroon and in the US. As you are signing up for it, it will ask you for a phone number. That is part of the process. But Cameroonians now can connect, and you can use your Cameroon number to create an account. It was a gradual rollout. It was available in the US long before it was available in Africa and other areas. So ChatGPT is a language model, not a source of facts. It is not a search engine. Give me news about SpaceX. It doesn't know the recent events. What happened last week in Boya? It doesn't know, and if it makes something up, it's probably not true. ChatGPT will not cite its sources because it is trying very hard not to generate copyrighted material or material based on the copyright. It's trying to generate something new based on the questions that you give it and what it has seen before. And if you ask it to give sources, it will give you sources that do not exist. So this is not the tool you're going to use to write a paper. I had a conversation with it one time. I said, what do you know about Brenda Berger? She's one of my thesis advisors. I said, oh, she's a linguist, works with SIL, used to work with this university, and she specializes in Central American languages. I said, don't you mean that she specializes in Solomon Island languages? It's like, no, it's definitely Central American languages. Can you give me some examples of articles she's written? And it generated a list of about 10 articles she never wrote about those languages to back itself up. And it was actually, it was saying, this was an article in language that didn't exist. It is not a fact-searching tool, but as long as you know that, it can be very useful. So it's a language model trying hard to please you. It will sometimes lie or oversimplify to answer a hard question if you let it. Find an English word with the same letter 3 times in a row. An English word with the same letter 3 times in a row is bookkeeper. It has 3 consecutive occurrences of the letter E. No, it doesn't. Playing language games like that, it's actually still not that great. But you've seen some things that they can do that are pretty impressive. So here are some example prompts for ChatGPT. So I'm going to be leading a workshop about Microsoft Word next week for people aged 30 to 35. What should I teach? Give me a deep metaphor for language vitality. Here's a letter I wrote. Tell me how to improve it. Summarize this text in 500 words or less. Help me write a Python script to convert files like this and give it an example. Rewrite this text in the style of. Ian and David DeGraff and I had a lot of fun taking a German hymn and having it translated into the style of various television personalities and comedians and authors. And it was pretty impressive what it came out with. Write a formula for Google Sheets that will display the result of the calculation, A2 times F2, if above 0, otherwise it displays error. And so I'm just going to take a couple of those. So let's do the deep metaphor. Okay, I got to escape out of here. Let's see. Actually, from those, which one should I try first? From the deep metaphor. Okay, Larry wins. Yeah. All right. So here we go. All right. So this is ChatGPT. Sorry, I do have it in dark mode. I prefer that, but bigger. There we go. All right. I'm going to start a new conversation, which gives it a new context. So I'm going to have to plus button here. There we go. Here we go. I am using ChatGPT 4 because I have the paid. It'll do a little bit better job. Here we go. Give me a deep metaphor for language vitality. There we go. The last time I asked it this, it gave me a metaphor of a tree. So we'll see what it gets. A tapestry woven from the threads of human experience, each strand a word, story, or life? A life. Its vitality lies not only in the richness of its hues and the strength of its fibers. Okay. So, yeah. 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 I will have access to it. I can get back to it. But I have the things on the left are previous conversations I've had with the tool. And so it's generated that. So if I wanted more information, or if I wanted to say, okay, here, let's go back here. I'm gonna continue this one more step, because I told you don't stop at the first one. So let's make this a little less flowery and more practical. All right, here we go. Ecosystem of a vast forest. Just as a healthy forest relies on biodiversity, thriving under the interplay of different species and the exchange of resources, a living language flourishes with the variety of its speakers and the richness of their communication. Yeah.
That was quite good, because when we do the training on the sustainable use model, we do talk about language ecologies, and the fact that a language will find itself in an ecosystem that will involve other languages as well. What's the interaction between all those different parts of the ecosystem.
Okay.
Now put it in the voice of Donald Trump.
Yeah, the voice of Donald Trump.
I could, and it would do a pretty good job. But I'm not. I don't think Trump's already been on the screen once. That's probably enough. So let's go with something a little more practical here. So let me copy that. Okay. So I'm going to start a new chat because it's a new context. With ChatGPT, as long as you stay in the same chat window, it tries to remember what you were talking about. And so you can say, hey, give me more information on the third thing or the second thing. Or you told me this, can you go a little bit deeper on that? You don't have to always give it the same context. So here we are. So this is a very practical example. You know who this is referencing? All right, so here we go. It has given me code. That is correct. Where it will generate the formula in Google Google Sheets, and it will, if it is less than 0, it will generate an error because that wasn't the value that you wanted. And you can give it much more complex questions than that. Yes. Okay. Okay. You can. All right. All right. So let's so generate. Well, it's okay. I don't have a lot in here. So generate a that identifies a. So you want a.
I want a nasal that's not part of the pre-nasal.
Okay. Okay. Generate a regular expression that identifies a nasal that is not part of a pre-nasalized consonant. Okay. All right. I can't see what I'm typing here, so take the. Yeah. Good. Even if I make mistakes in here, it will. Okay. Okay. So this the text uses the IPA characters available for nasals in UTF-8. Okay. There we go. So let's see what it gives us. And it may understand what we mean, it may not, but if I gave it a list of nasals and how those are written, then it would do a great job, but this is just the first try. All right. To identify those, we need to know what characters represent nasal sounds. In the IPA, those include, it's getting there. And Yes, it's thinking, yeah. It's thinking and going. So it's generating a response. And you can ask it later on, if you could say, what information do you need to help me with this? And it will give you a list of things that you need to give it to be able to complete the task better. So we're still getting there. We're still in the pre-mode. So it's figuring things out. I gave it a little bit more context just to help it along, but so here's a regular expression. Regular expressions are find and replace on steroids. But here we go. Yeah. Almost. Except the fact that P consonant is not a class. That is actually pretty close. And if I were able to give it a list of consonants instead of that, then this would be a good regular expression. Oh. There you go. It assumes that it matches the consonant. So I would need to create a class of those consonants to give it very clear instructions. And so we're halfway there. Yep. Yeah. So this is, okay, so because I'm on the paid version, I can ask it for images and things like that, but you've seen those images. But anybody have an idea? Let's go to a new chat. Anybody have an idea of something they would like to see it draw or create?
Yeah, cutting grass.
Okay. What? So just cutting, okay, so let's give it more detail. A what cutting grass, Larry? Okay. 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 Generate an animal or an okay. Let's. Okay. Yeah, I will do that too. Yeah. So. All right. Okay. All right. So generate an image of an animal called so. Yep. As a line drawing in. I'll give it both. Cutting grass? Okay. Yep. You came to watch me type. There we go. Cutting grass, 2 words? Okay, sure. Let's see what we get. Generate. So while it's generating, this takes a moment. There are lots of tools out there that do this. They're all trying to figure out exactly how they want to do their restrictions. Right now, Gemini's is not really working, the Google one, because it was starting to generate things that were very wrong. Okay. So he is cutting grass, and that's a little bit of confusing, yeah. But okay, let's do this. Right? Google it, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Synonyms. Okay. Okay, so we want to so make it a thorough THRYONOMYS. Make it that. Okay. So now I'm asking it to modify the prompt to get something else. So we'll see. Yeah, I mean, just it's referring to the image that it just did, but it's making a tweak to it, and so it's going to generate a new image that hopefully is closer to what we wanted. So here we go. Is that him? How close are we? I don't know. I can't validate it because. To me, it looks like a possum, but yeah, I can see it. Yeah, that's.
They're saying no, it's not it.
No. Okay. Okay.
I think it's just.
Yep. So. Yeah.
This picture's
Okay. Yep. Okay. So. All right. I didn't know we were getting into. Okay. Okay. SWYN. Oh. Okay. So it's still this. Okay. And so that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, you ask it. I asked you at one time to generate an image of a cat, and I was like, no, how about an African cat? That one's a little too chubby. Yep. Okay. So we're trying again here. See if it knows what that is. Some of these tools, you can give it a photo, and you can say, hey, make a line drawing out of this. That may be an easier way to get it. Copilot can do it, I believe, and there are others out there as well. And you can also, yeah.
How does that relate to copyright?
It generates a new image that is based off of, and so it's kind of up to you to decide if you had the right to use the image in the first place. Is that better or worse? Okay. The tail is, oops. We're really getting off into the weeds here, but yeah. Let's try again. The tail's too long, so let's see what we get one more. All right. Yeah. If I could tell it what it was that I wanted to see, then I could get a better image out of it, but we'll see. So a little further here. So there we go. Worse. Yeah. It doesn't always go the direction you want, but yeah. Yes. Yeah. All right. So yeah. Okay. So let's go back here. So, all right. So working with conversational search. So I told you, ChatGPT is not a search engine, but there are tools that use AI to help you find what you're looking for on the internet. Perplexity is one that I didn't know about until I heard about it from John. Copilot by Microsoft, Gemini by Google. Claude is another one that can do. Actually, I guess Claude actually is probably more like ChatGPT. I shouldn't have put that one there. But these tools are conversational search engines that can do tasks or find you search results or do both at the same time. So you can ask the same type of questions of Copilot that I was just asking of ChatGPT. Or you can say, find me information about this rare topic, and it will find them for you. So it's a mix between a search engine and a large language model, so that it can help you formulate your question better, your search better, so that you can find what you're looking for. Some of these tools have the extra free features like image generation. They may or not be active at the moment. As I said, Copilot's is still working. Google's is mostly down right now as they're reworking it. But the usage is often limited per day. When you will see during the language technology section after this that you'll see some images that were generated by AI to go into a comic book. But you only get 30 requests a day on Copilot for free. I don't know if there's a paid tier. I don't know what that is. I haven't looked. John mentioned in playing with an AI, I'm not sure which one it was, but to ask it for a picture of an African man in a village listening to the radio with a goat in the background. And this was the first result I got. When they did it, he said that the goat actually looked like a sheep. And so they had to ask a few more questions to get it to line up, but to my eye, that looks like exactly what I asked for. And it looks a little bit like Pa Joseph, doesn't it? A little bit. So, yeah. But, yep. So, what can AI do for minority languages? I just showed all the examples. Okay, everything that I just did, you can do in French, in ChatGPT, in Google's Copilot, in Gemini. You can have conversations in French because the system also knows French. You can do it in German. You can do it in the large languages of the world. But people want to know here, well, what can I do for my language? So I've given this hierarchy multiple times in multiple workshops. If you want to be able to work in your language, the computer needs to be able to support your language. So you've got to have fonts, keyboards to be able to do data input. And it needs to be able to show the characters on the screen. Because most Cameroonian languages use Roman script letters, A through Z, plus some of the phonetic alphabet, that work was done more than a decade ago. 2007 actually was the last update on that the Cameroonian orthography needed. It was the capital schwa and the capital open O. The IPA doesn't use capitals, so they had to add those later. But once that's done, people can start using tools that are out there to do linguistic work. So Flex, Primer Prep, Phonology Assistant, some other things, you'll see some of those in the next session. Once that's been done, people have to start creating content in the language and getting it out there. The reason that we do not have AI tools that can do everything you want in the languages of Cameroon is because we're stuck here. I would say in most languages of Cameroon, the largest document that exists may be the New Testament. And that's what, 8,000 sentences, something like that, 8,000 verses at least, 8 to 10,000. The reason that AI, you can't just have this conversation in Noni right now is because it doesn't know anything about Noni. There's not a lot of Noni content out there. And for it to start working well, you're talking hundreds of pages of text before it starts to understand how the language works and what it can do. Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment here, but yeah, that's coming up very soon. So, AI Bible translation. But so after you have content that's created in the language, that's when you can start doing all these interesting AI machine learning tools to do the other stuff. It doesn't mean you can't use AI. There's a tool out there called COG that you give it a list of words in multiple languages, and it will help you do a dialect analysis. It'll say, I think these two words may be cognate, and this is why. Now, as Ginger has said, sometimes it's wrong, sometimes it's right, but it gives you suggestions and you can pick from them. And so that's the sort of thing that it can do. If you wanted to write a routine that finds all of the nasals that are not part of prenasalized, you can write routines that do that. If you know what you're doing and you can give it the right coaching and input, you probably can have it help you with a specific task. But asking it to translate this text, that's pretty far. Except AI Bible translation, first question you need to ask is, what can I give it? So do you have thousands of interlinearized texts in the target language? Probably not. Do you have a related language with an acceptable full Bible? Maybe. Does that full Bible have a full interlinear or a full free back translation? Maybe not, but hopefully. Do you have a related language with a partial Bible? And does that have interlinears? And what do you need? Are you looking for Bible portions, a New Testament, an Old Testament, non-Bible works, or making a children's Bible? Just imagine with ChatGPT, what we were doing before. You give it a Bible text in English or in French, and you say, give me a version of this for 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds. It can do it. And those sentences are way too long. Can you find smaller words, simpler words for that? Once there is a large amount of language available out on the internet that can be accessed and can be trained upon, the system will start to be able to do such things in the language. So also, what do you have? Do you have a stable orthography? If there are 3 orthographies that are out there on the internet and they don't agree, it's going to confuse it. Yaoundé would be that example. If you give it all the information you could find on Yaoundé, and if you had the copyright to do so, it's going to make a mess because it's going to be confused about what those options are. Do you have translators that can improve the pre-drafts? Again, you can't just take what it gives you and say, this is the gospel, this is the Bible, whatever. It needs to be cleaned up and it needs to be worked with. But the question is what can be generated better, or is it easier to edit the draft and make a good translation than it is to start from scratch? Now, the folks behind Scripture Forge that we talked about at the workshop a few weeks ago said that it is more likely to be natural than it is to be correct. So you will get natural language that has weird, incorrect, or factual issues with it. So one other thing is you can chain these tools together. You can use one after another after another. As long as you continue to improve the output, you can get a little further. So you could translate the New Testament into language X, clean and check your drafts. You can use Scripture Forge, a tool that's out there, to draft the OT for the language for language X, draft the Old Testament. So it drafts Genesis, and you look at it and you clean it up. You're like, okay, that's pretty good. You feed Genesis back into the model and you say, okay, now give me Exodus. And it learns over time what good translation looks like, and it learns, in this case, what Old Testament translation looks like, because it doesn't know that yet. It's only seen New Testament. Then you could use, for example, FlexTrans, which is another tool, to build a model to adapt that into a related language. Right now, Scripture Forge is not good at doing related language adaptation because it doesn't know either language. If it knew one of those languages, it could do a good job. And when I say new, that's a bit of a weird term. It's not really knowing, it's statistics. But so you could build a model to adapt from A to or into language Y, and then you could take that model and you could feed it back in and tweak it to output for language Z. So here's a diagram of what that might look like. So traditional translation, you got a loop where you translate a book and you check it. Translate a book and you check it. We don't have an easy way right now to, for a language that has never had books written before, to train it on how to do that translation. You still need the translators in the loop. Okay? After that, you put that into a machine translation system and you clean up every book it gives you and you feed it back in again. And it generates, you end up generating the Old Testament in the language, and now you have a full Bible in the language that you have checked. Okay? Then you do the rule-based adaptation, and over time, those rules get better and cleaner, and you end up with a draft of the Bible in Y language that has been checked. And then you can take it further. You take that model here, and you move that and you adapt that for the next language, and then you can and then you get a translation in language Z. So there are people that are planning to do this method, to work through this, to get those drafts and to do the work. So one thing that I would love to see is I would love to see a full interlinearized Bible in each language family of Cameroon. Interlinearized into French or English, it doesn't matter. But an interlinearized Bible is a Bible that it is a text that has the syntax and the smell of the language, but the words are English. Because the tools know English, they will see Father, they know what that means. But then they'll see the unusual order of the way it's done and they can mimic that. So I think our best training data for being able to do adaptation is going to be to eventually have an interlinearized Bible in all these languages. If we can get a free translation, that's great, but I think this is going to be the best. So having an interlinear of Lamso would help for certain languages. Having an full interlinear of Fulfulde would help for Chadic languages. Now, there are differences between all those languages. I know that, but it's going to be able to generate, it may be able to generate a draft that you could work from. Several groups are already working on revising drafts that were generated by the Limboom and Abana team, I believe, are working on drafts that were generated by ScriptureForge to see, is this a better working method? Can we generate this text and clean it up instead of starting from scratch? They're working on that. But these are tests that can be run. Yeah. And I love this quote. You can't believe everything you read on the internet, William Shakespeare. Just a reminder that these tools generate things that they sound reasonable and plausible. They may not be correct. Pretty sure that's not from him or Abe Lincoln. Yes.
That brings back your point about the text is more likely to be natural.
Yes.
Than same thing.
Yes. Yep. That's all I had prepared, but I'm hoping there are going to be some more questions from there. Yes. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Must be prepared.
Yes. Yes. So with the free versions, you have a limit to how much text you can give it. Well, with all versions, you have a limit to how much text you can give it, but those limits are much lower for the free version. So if you wanted a summary of a chapter, it can do that. If you wanted a topical index of a chapter, it can do that. And you could give it one chapter at a time and it would give you a summary, but you wouldn't be able to give it the whole book and get one big summary. And it actually, the more AI, so with a regular computer system, it can repeat the same task over and over and over again. It never gets tired. It just keeps doing it. With an AI system, if you have it keep doing things and say, give me 5 more, give me 5 more, the quality actually gets worse over time. And sometimes it will miss things and it will just lose track. It's the amount. Okay, so ChatGPT was trained, as I said, on a snapshot of the internet about a year ago. Those are the things it knows every time you open a new chat box. Okay? But what it knows about what you're asking and what you've given it starts fresh every single time you start a new chat window. So we were having that conversation about nasals. If I go back in there and I say, hey, actually, here's a nasal that you didn't think about, add this in there, it will remember that context. But it has a limited capacity to learn things on the fly that you're giving it without being retrained. So when you're using ScriptureForge, the only part that it doesn't know is the language that you gave it in the New Testament. It knows English, it knows French, it knows the source languages that you're giving, and so it can figure out what those meanings are and it can make connections. But it can't do a good adaptation into 2 languages it doesn't know because it doesn't have hooks to grab onto. It doesn't know that this phrase means something. It doesn't know that this phrase means something. It's just doing pattern matching. And there's also just a limited amount of memory that each user is allowed to use at any given point when you're interacting with the machine. But it's getting better and better. I mean, the ChatGPT 4 gets lost much slower. It takes a lot longer for it to get lost. 3.5, it would get lost after, like I said, about 30 interchanges. It's like, So sometimes I would close that window, start a new window, said, here's where we left off. This is what we've done up till now. Maybe put in the code or the text that it had written, and then continue on. Yes? It could be. Yeah. Yep. Great group service. Yep. 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 Yes. Most of the full Bibles were not completed by SIL. Most of the full Bibles are either joint projects or they are Bible Society projects. So we don't have a lot of full Bibles that we have full access to do such a thing with. We could get the rights to do it, and it would be great if anyone would do that for these languages. It'd be great group service. Yes. Hmm? Yeah. Hmm? Yep. Yep. Hmm? Yeah. Yep.
And then you want it to develop to generate 80% of that.
Sure. Let's do it. So let's start a new chat. We need to get away from this mouse. All right. Oh, actually, have a window. Everybody knows about my presentation. Draft. Okay. Draft a Christian devotional to start this workshop. All right. See what it gives us. I've asked it to like compare and contrast various Christian ideologies and does a great job. So here we are. Okay, Tower got it. All right, that's on point. Pentecost. Yeah, well, that's great. That would be a great start. Now, don't take it and say this is perfect, because there could be a lot of theological mess in here, because there's a lot of theological mess out on the internet. But or the prayer, ChatGPT is praying. Well, yeah. So there we go. Yep. There you go. It just generated it. And if I took the time to make it better, I could do it. Or if I wrote one and I wanted it to improve it, say, I don't think this is quite impactful enough. Can you change this? Or I think people are getting lost in the middle. Can you help me with this? We can do that. Oh, great. Yes, I meant to do that. Yes. Please. You want to be nice to it, just in case for the future. Please translate this into French. Actually, I'm going to say this. I don't think I can say that, but I can say simple French. Or, yeah. I could do that, but okay, so there we go. The capitalization doesn't matter, so. There we go. Again, everything that I've shown you today, you can do in French as well as English. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Pentecostal audience.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
One of the best things we literacy department can do, honestly, is to truly start helping language communities use Bloom in order to generate stories.
Exactly.
The more stories that they are, the more text there is, the more it can be fed into it.
Exactly.
And it will give more basis, more background, more foundation.
That's correct. And even Bloom books are actually an ideal example, because they can be, if you translate it, you have the English and the French available as well. And so the model could be trained on those. If you have books that are only in the language, that's actually less helpful in that case. It's good for understanding the grammar and what's available in the language and the words that are possible. But having a line text is ideal. And so yes, if there were 100 books, 150 books in a language of Cameroon, and you trained a system on that, it would be able to start helping you with things and getting further. Yes, Rachel. Okay. Right. With the paid version, you can give it information. So I have the paid version. I could give, okay, I'll give you a similar example. So up here is KeyPT. So I was starting to create a bot that would help people create keyboards in Keyman. And so I downloaded the open source documentation for Keyman, and I downloaded a copy of all of the keyboards that are quality keyboards that are at the highest level that have documentation, and I gave it that. And so now I can ask it questions about how to create keyboards, and it will give me suggestions. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not, but I can give it a download of information that I want it to know about. And so this is my private account. At this point, the only way, if I wanted to share this with somebody, they either have to have a paid account or I have to create a website that hosts it, and then people can access it through that website. And basically, I would be paying by the request, and I would need to get ad revenue to pay me back. But if we wanted to do something like that, yes, we could give it a dump of Bloom books. We could possibly take those Bloom books and go with the folks from Scripture Forge, and say, here's a bunch of aligned text to help us with the translation, and use it. But that is a high-level thing that you're not going to be able to do with the free versions to go that far. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure there are, and we'd have to look at the licensing, but a single account that you're only using on one machine at a time might be an option. Just have a machine that is logged into that, and again, it's $20 a month. But for a lot of the trials that you want to do, the free versions are going to be sufficient. Yep. 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 Yeah. So that would be Google Copilot, or sorry, Microsoft Copilot. Yes. Yes, it is. So Microsoft has a questionable stake in OpenAI. So they get access to stuff that others don't have. And so there's discussions about that, but and even legal cases coming about that. But right now, so when I do a search here and I request something, it is actually asking ChatGPT 4, the higher quality version, it's asking that question. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So generate a line. You mean, what do you mean? You mean a pad with metal on the bottom? Okay. Okay. So let's see. I have a scouring sponge with a scouring sponge with a metal layer. Oh, fully. Okay. So a metal scouring. Yeah. I have a metal scouring sponge. There we go. So let me back that up. Yep. All right. So we'll see what we get here. And just out of curiosity, I'm going to run it in both ChatGPT and here, but all right. Yep. See what we get. And again, I have a feeling even if we don't exactly like what it does, then we can tweak it. That is not it. That's the placeholder image. That is an hourglass. I'm aware. It's coming. It's generating. It takes time. There we go. Okay. Let's. Yeah. Yeah. I believe you can, yeah. I believe you can, yeah. And there are other tools that can do that as well. I don't remember the names, but they do exist. There is no way that I could have presented a list of what tools are out there that's up to anywhere near up to date. It's all changing, and you saw the difference between Will Smith 1 year ago and the and the Sora video. Things are moving very fast. Generally, no. Generally, you can't, but yes, yes. Well, in many cases, it will stop you. It should stop you. Yeah. So if you give it an image, it sort of assumes that you have the rights to use that image. But if you're asking it to give me a chapter out of somebody's new book, it's not going to do that. Even though it may have been trained on that book, and it may be able to give you a summary of that book, and it may be able to generate content similar to that book. So if you can give it an image that is similar, and you give it an image and say, hey, start with this and make something else. Night Cafe might be another option. There are a lot. Stable Diffusion might be another option. So there are other tools out there. Stable Diffusion might actually be a really good one for that case, where you give it an image and say, I want you to tweak this image in this way and generate something new. But there are always questions with copyright. If you base something off of a copyrighted work, but it is not that copyrighted work, how far does that copyright extend? And those questions are still out there. And OpenAI ChatGPT gets around that by saying, well, I can't generate that content, but I can generate something similar. And so you can probably do that as well. So yeah, I think you should be able to do that. If we played with it and wrote a really good prompt that described what the thing looked like, I think it could do it. And it even, let's actually ask ChatGPT that same question. Yeah. Steel wool. Okay, let's just do it in here. Okay. So, all right. So generate and yep, a line. Yeah, so a line. I'm curious if it's going to show us with sprinkles. I would be amused if it showed it with sprinkles. Yeah. So, and even Copilot sort of ignored the line art command. Okay. So okay, that's okay. It got the donut shape. So I need much finer steel wool. And do we want to close up the hole in the center, or no? That's just I need much finer steel wool. So let's see if it understands what that means. Finer is a very odd term, but that's what we're looking for. So let's see what it gives us. But it's also remembering that I asked it for a line art. So it should give me another line art that is its interpretation of finer steel wool. Getting closer. That looks like yarn. Yeah. Okay. Sure. I'll try it. So let's just Google steel wool photo. Okay, that's exploding steel wool, but I want the non-exploding version. Metal. Okay, so yeah, metal. Yeah, that sounds good. Metal. All right, so. Okay. That one? Okay. All right. So let me copy that. Copy image. Okay, and so now let's go back to ChatGPT and see if I can give it that. I haven't. Whoop. No, I have to. Okay. It's just happening. Got like 2 minutes left. So let's see here. Okay, so I'm here because I have the paid account. I can give it an image or an attachment. All right, so generate a detailed line drawing of this image. Okay, detailed is misspelled. There we go. Let's see what happens. So it's taking the image first as the input, and it's working. Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah. It's doable, but this may not be the right tool for it. But it's just, no, I think it's actually probably internet. It might even be related to internet connection issues, but I'm not sure why. But this is, sometimes you run into this, but yeah. It makes them go to and make it a color cartoon, make it photorealistic, and it's the same dog with the same spots. But it's a photorealistic version of it. I know that it's been done. I just don't remember which tool they did it with for the reverse, but it's possible, but it doesn't always work. Thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. Okay. Yep. Yep.
Because all these things that are possible.
As long as you can define a task, yeah. I mean, everything we're doing, almost everything we're doing here takes money and time. So that's not going to change. But as I've said, most of these tools for free, you can get a lot out of them for free. And if as we are willing to invest resources, we can get better tools that are better trained to do specific tasks. And so yeah, it's all there. I mean, the setup that I just showed, the setup I showed with the Bible translation, that is all currently possible. If you have a New Testament, you can use that with existing tools that we saw Scripture Forge. We saw that last month to help draft the Old Testament. Once you have the Old Testament, you've cleaned that up, then you can help that. You can use that with another tool, FlexTrans, which already exists. You just have to set up a profile for the language, and you can generate copies in related languages that, again, need to be cleaned up. Everything I've shown you today is possible already, but it's still, even if the computer does most of the steps for you, you still have to check it. You still have to work through the results and make sure that it did what you wanted to do, or else, yeah, you're just putting it out there. It's just noise. So, yep. Thank you. Yep. Yeah. So at the translation thing tomorrow in the morning, some of these tools will come back up. Yeah. It won't be as deep as what we went into that does during the workshop. Yeah.